Howdy, long time no sees, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. Welcome to another brand new episode of H&R Movie Talk. I am HB Gibson, along with
RT Mac. Yes, it's been a long time coming, but we're glad that we came back. And even though the people we're going to talk about, it's been at least a month since this happened.
Mm-hmm.
We still wanted to pay tribute to two people that we lost.
Yes.
One is the late great Adam West.
Yes.
Who, as we all know, played Batman in the 1960s TV show, and also Mayor Adam West on Family Guy.
Yeah.
And also Peter Sallis, who, for those of you who've ever watched Claymation, you remember him as the voice of Wallace and Wallace and Gromit.
Mm-hmm.
And for anybody from the UK that's ever seen this show, you'll know him also from Last of the Summer Wine, which went on for a pretty long run, which we'll get into. But why don't you take us away?
Okay, we're going to start off with the late, great Adam West, who was born William West Anderson on September 19th, 1928. He was born in Walla Walla, Washington, and he left us at age 88 on June 9th, 2017. Of course, he's well known for Batman, also playing Mayor West, Colonel Dan McGreedy, and also Catman, believe it or not. the television shows that he's been involved with were Batman, of course Family Guy, The Simpsons, also Robin Caruso of Mars, and Fairly Odd Parents.
He also played himself in an episode of Johnny Bravo. Remember that show?
Well, I remember Johnny Bravo. I just don't remember that episode.
Basically, Johnny thought something happened to his mother, and he saw a commercial with Adam West, I think, for some kind of workout routine. But he sought out his help, and Adam West, in pure Adam West form, completely believed that his mother was missing, and they went to find clues to, about her whereabouts. But it was hilarious, and he kind of made a career off of playing a parody of himself.
Yeah, exactly, because he has that voice. He has that. Let's see. Let me see if I can pull off an Adam West impersonation.
Uh-oh.
There can only be one criminal that can pull this type of crime. The Catwoman. There we go. Holy felines, Batman! Precisely, Robin. To the Batmobile. We don't have a moment to lose. So, there we go.
And now you say he was born in 1928.
1928 in Walla Walla, Washington.
Now, if, for some of you history buffs, you'll know that was a year before the crash on Wall Street of 1929. So he basically grew up during the Great Depression.
Yeah.
It was a time where, Americans had to wonder whether their way of life could even exist and whether their lives would ever get better.
Yes.
Since the Depression really didn't end until we went into World War II, where there was a massive, call to arms. Many people were drafted.
Yep.
So it allowed, the men, and I guess in some cases women, to go off into the war and get paid for that.
Yeah.
And while they were away, the women who stayed in the U.S., they took over in the workforce. They were doing the automobile industry, the restaurant industry, just everything, every industry that you saw men particularly in.
Yes.
They were doing it.
Right.
There's a lot of video clips of women, putting together the cars on the assembly line. So for Adam West to grow up in that period, it gave him, a great sense of doing a lot with very little.
Right.
And it also made him appreciate the value of a dollar.
Exactly.
So I think those kind of values were really instilled in him at an early age.
And I think that's probably the reason why he's probably one of the most likable actors out there, because from what I understand, he's never given anybody an attitude or a hard time, because he had humble beginnings, and that's very well appreciated. Now, here's a little something that I found out about how Adam West actually got the role of Batman. He played a character by the name of Captain Q.
Oh my god.
Captain Q was basically a fictitious James Bond style character that's featured in a commercial. As you know, there are commercials out there that have particular characters. You have the Old Spice guy that can do just about everything, and the most interesting man in the world. Adam West played a character by the name of Captain Q, and it was his swagger on this particular commercial, which was for Nestle Quick. It was Nestle Quick. If you look it up on YouTube, there's a scene where he walks in and he's being invited by the villain for a glass of Nestle Quick, and after he's done with his Nestle Quick, Adam West stands up and the trap door that was set for him goes off, and he basically thwarts all the traps and everything of the villain that you never see on screen. You always see his hand stirring the Nestle Quick, but someone saw him in this particular Nestle Quick commercial as Captain Q, and that's how he basically got the job for Batman.
And there's an interesting thing. Given his age and the year he was born,
Mm-hmm.
he was actually older than the superheroes that he would have been the right age to read about.
Mm-hmm.
Comics, yes, they were for kids, but if you really look at some of the early stories, they're kind of more geared towards adults.
Right.
Perfect example. The creators of Superman, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster,
Mm-hmm.
they were both sons of Jewish immigrants.
Right.
And when they created Superman, originally, if you ever seen the documentary about Superman, it originally started out, a story they wrote called Reign of the Superman.
Yes.
Where it's basically a villain with psychopathic abilities,
Right,
bald guy.
right.
Basically Lex Luthor with psychic powers. But when they rethought the concept, they made his powers more physical, like Hercules and Samson. They modeled him all, after all the great strongmen
Yes.
of mythology.
Right.
So Adam West growing up, he probably would have been one of the first people to see Action Comics #1
Yes.
sold for a dime, featuring
Right.
Superman lifting that car.
Yeah, from what I understand, as he was coming up, he did read comics. He did enjoy the comic books.
And so it works out perfectly when he got the role for Batman.
Mhm.
So he already understood their history, knew enough about it, even though the show itself was a straight-faced parody of comic books.
Yeah.
So that's what made it more fun.
And if you ever get a chance, please, I enjoy it so much, and I watch it all the time. It's a show. It was a docu-film comedy called, I believe it's called Return to the Batcave: The Adventures of Burt Ward and Adam West. They basically reprise their roles, basically as themselves, but they're put in a Batman and Robin situation. So they do Batman and Robin things, but without their costumes, and it flashbacks to the time when they were actually filming Batman. Of course, Adam West, Burt Ward, and Yvonne Craig were played by other actors whose names escape me at the moment. But it tells you the actual story of the Batman television series. Really brilliant. You can find it on YouTube. Check it out.
Oh, and of course, last year we got Batman Return of the Caped Crusaders,
Yes.
a DC animated film,
Mhm.
which had Adam West, Burt Ward, and Julie Newmar reprising their roles as Batman, Robin, and Catwoman, respectively.
Right.
And actually, they pay homage to the other two women who portrayed Catwoman, one of which, the late great Eartha Kitt.
Yes.
When Batman is knocked in the head, he's a little dizzy and he's seeing triple
Mhm.
when he looks at Catwoman. But when he sees the other two, it's the other...
The other iterations of Catwoman that appeared in the original
same-
show.
And their same accents. Like
Exactly.
Of course, Eartha Kitt had already passed away a while back,
Mm.
but if my memory serves me correctly, the woman who provided Eartha Kitt's iteration might have been the same woman that I actually met in person. She's actually an Eartha Kitt impersonator.
Wow.
And she's part of the women's theater, group that's based in New York. My theater history professor at BMCC is also a part of that group. And she invited two people over. One of them was that woman, and she was dressed as Eartha Kitt. And so she performed a monologue as Eartha Kitt and
Wow.
answered questions as Eartha Kitt.
That's amazing.
And I actually stumped her on a good question.
Mhm.
When we did the Q&A, I asked her, did TV audiences accept you right away since you were a black woman portraying Catwoman, always shown as white?
Mm.
And it took her a few seconds to really gather up a good answer.
Mm.
I can't really remember everything she said, but I do remember they accepted her with open arms
Mhm.
because she was just that good and that beautiful of an
Right.
actress. So,
Yeah. One of back to Adam West. While in Hawaii, West was handpicked for a role as a sidekick on a children's show called, let me see if I can pronounce it right, El Kinipopo Show, which featured a chimp. And West later on took over as the star of the show, so he got to start off in those one of those Captain Kangaroo type of children's shows. So that's why one of his earliest roles.
oh, you know what? Before we go on, considering that we have a lot to talk about Adam West, we're going to do a part 2 for Peter Sallis.
Okay.
Like, we'll dedicate one whole episode to each man since they both had very long careers.
Yes.
Like, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
So, continuing with Adam West, I just want to say that his final film role is a sequel to Return of the Caped Crusaders.
Yeah.
It comes out this year, and it's going to have, Adam West, Burt Ward, Julie Newmar returning, along with William Shatner as the voice of Two-Face.
Oh man, that's gonna be brilliant.
So you have two of the hammiest actors to ever appear on television or film, Adam West and William Shatner. How are they going to outdo each other?
There's gonna be a lot of ham on that sandwich, guys.
It's going to be hilarious, but it's also going to be great because the DC animators, they really know their stuff.
That's right.
They have respect for the source material, but they also show it in a way that fans would like.
Right.
That's why they've made almost 30 DC animated movies, which we did our trilogy on.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
We started out with Superman Doomsday 10 years ago, 2007, and they've done almost 30 films since.
Yes, yes, yes.
So it's pretty impressive, but let's go to the other thing that Adam West is known for, Family Guy.
Family Guy, yes.
So for those of you who followed Family Guy since the beginning in 1999, you know that the first season, I don't think was even 10 episodes. It was maybe 7 or 8. When they came out with the second season, that's when the character of Mayor Adam West made his introduction. And I think the first episode was when they were telling the history of Quahog.
Right.
With Miles, Musket.
Miles Musket, I believe that, yeah.
Yeah, they were telling
It's been a while since I've seen that episode.
him and the Magic Talking Clam. But yeah, you could tell Adam West, he was acting his old crazy self, but as the series progressed,
Yes.
they had, they added more dimension to his character.
Now, as far as let me just backtrack real quick back to Batman. There was an episode of Batman the Animated Series entitled "The Gray Ghost," where Adam West did the voice of the actor that played the Gray Ghost, which was a show that Bruce Wayne idolized as he was coming up, and Adam West did voice that character. So if you can look up that episode of The Gray Ghost, Batman the Animated Series, and they originally the creators of that particular episode were thinking about scrapping it because they just felt it was too Adam West heavy, but they were convinced otherwise because you have to give it up to Adam West being the first and to many people the only Batman.
And I'm sure that Kevin Conroy advocated for that episode,
Absolutely.
considering that he took on the role, at least in voiceover. But you know what? I think a young Kevin Conroy would have been able to do live action because he was just intimidating. He still is.
Yeah.
And there's actually another episode of the animated series when they did the whole redesign to the characters in the last season. There's these 3 kids who eventually stumble on to Firefly, breaking into a place. But they had their own interpretations of Batman, which pay homage to Adam West and The Dark Knight Rises.
Yes.
But the Adam West one was hilarious because the way they recorded the lines for that particular segment, they brought old 1950s microphones
Right.
to record it so it sounded authentic.
Right. Oh, yeah. They
And
went at it.
It was so well done. They showed the shaking of the hands that Batman and Robin do, calling Robin old chum. Oh, it was
Chum.
It was great.
Now, the list of his voiceover work in animation, of course, The Simpsons. He also did voiceover for Futurama, Rugrats, Hysteria, Kim Possible, and of course, as we mentioned, Johnny Bravo and Batman, the animated series, the episode called Beware the Grey Ghost.
So going into Family Guy, the way they had him interact with the Griffins, it was great.
Yes.
You know, there was a time where Lois ran against him for mayor, and she won. Although in the end she couldn't take being a corrupt politician.
Right.
And Mayor West was more than happy to take that role. You know, it's basically a do-nothing job for him.
Right.
There was a time where he spent taxpayer money on a golden statue of a frog, the Diggum statue, and to avoid bad press on it, he put a bill, you know, basically blocking gay marriage, and thankfully Brian got him to reverse it. You know, there's an episode where he marries Lois' sister, Carol,
Yeah.
and she had like 10 failed marriages before that, so that one actually worked.
Yeah. I have a list here of a lot of the works that he has done. We have Voodoo Island, 1957, Voodoo Island. In 1958, he appeared in Ghosts of the China Sea. In 1959, The Young Philadelphians. Also in 1959, The FBI Story, Geronimo, Tammy and the Doctor, Soldier in the Rain, Robinson Crusoe on Mars. If you ever seen that one, that's a sci-fi classic. The Outlaws Are Coming, Mara of the Wilderness, The Relentless Four, of course Batman, The Girl Who Knew Too Much, 1969, The Marriage of a Young Stockbroker, Hell River, The Specialist, Hooper. He played himself in Hooper. The Happy Hooker Goes Hollywood, One Dark Night, Hellraisers, Yellow Pages, Young Lady Chatterley 2. Anybody know anything about Young Lady Chatterley? Zombie Nightmare, Doing Time on Planet Earth, and a host of other films and television shows.
He was a Golden Age actor. He was one of the last remaining Golden Age actors, so he was basically there for the beginning of television. Because television didn't come out till the late 1940s.
Yep.
So he's old enough to have been on one of the very first television shows, and in a way he was in that early television period where you could basically do anything, because it didn't matter if you messed up, because there would be a new show the next week.
Yeah.
So it was a really great time for experimenting and really finding out what TV audiences liked, because it was a way for people to stay home. The only money they had to spend was on the TV itself.
Yep.
They had 3 channels, but they were all free.
Right.
And that's what appealed to people, and that's actually what cut theater attendance by half in the 1950s.
Yes, sir. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, unless there's anything else that comes to mind.
There is one thing. We want to, you know, we've been trying to find out what Family Guy is going to do, and according to Seth MacFarlane and the other executives, apparently Adam West had recorded lines for a certain number of episodes that they're going to air in the new season, and after those have aired, I think that's when they'll finally do an episode addressing, you know, they may kill him off, or they may have, you know, retire. You know, I'm not sure what they're going to do, but I'm sure that they'll do something that honors his memory the right way.
Right.
Because he contributed so much to that show.
Yes,
it's
he
incredible. And even one of the later episodes where Cleveland becomes a therapist,
Yes.
he actually points out something that Mayor West admitted to, that his looniness was just a front. It's a front to cover up his corruption and the fact that he's just a psychopathic maniac.
Right.
And Mayor West is like, you are absolutely right. So even if he kills somebody, it wouldn't matter, because he's just a nutty professor type person. He's the nutty mayor.
Yeah.
So we want to express our condolences to Adam West's family, all of his co-stars that worked with him, like Burt Ward, Seth
Yeah.
MacFarlane, Julie Newmar, Alex Borstein, everybody from the cast of Batman and Family Guy, to everybody else who knew him and worked with him.
Right.
You know, we're gonna miss him,
Yep.
and I can't wait for Return of the Cape Crusaders 2,
Yes.
because that I know is gonna have a nice tribute to him.
I'll tell you, Nicolas Cage did a nice little homage to him in the film Kick-Ass.
Oh, yeah.
Where he played the character Big Daddy, and he
In a
put on
Batman kind of suit.
Batmanish type of suit, yeah, and he would address Kick-Ass as "Look, ass, kick."
So, yeah, that was a good way to pay tribute, and that movie made a lot of money.
Yeah, a great impression by Mr. Nicolas Cage. Gotta give it to him.
So that does it for this episode of H&R Movie Talk.
Yep.
Don't go anywhere, because part 2 will be coming up very shortly.
Yep.